change bill has been released for public comment by the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. The bill is being introduced as the country is battling to recover from its deadliest natural disaster in decades. Now, according to this bill, every organ of state would be required by law to integrate its numerous policies and decision-making processes related to climate change. Let's talk more about this. We're joined by Creecy, the Minister for Forestry, Fisheries and Environmental Affairs. A very good morning to you, Minister. Welcome to the program. You've said that this bill speaks to the urgency of the climate change issue. How urgent is that urgency in South Africa?
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. Well, I think that for many years we have understood that climate change is a phenomenon that will affect all countries across the globe. And we know that in sub-Saharan Africa, the way it will manifest is in terms of extreme weather conditions, very, very heavy rainfall on the eastern side of our country, increasing drought conditions on the western side of our country, and of course, together with that, extreme storms, wildfires, and so on. And let me start by expressing my condolences to the more than 435 people who lost their lives in this terrible tragedy that happened in KwaZulu-Natal. I think that what it tells us is that we can no longer live under the misconception that climate change will be a slow onset event that will only affect our country in 10 or 15 years' time. I think that we are now living through climate change, and obviously this means that we have to take increasing steps to make our society and our economy more climate resilient.
So one of the goals of the bill is to develop adaptation scenarios to help anticipate climate events, such as what we've seen in KZN, for example, at least to my mind. Could we have limited, do you think, the impact of the disaster had we had some of those adaptation scenarios in place somewhere such as KZN at the moment?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to say that part of our adaptation strategy is our weather forecasting and what we call impact forecasting. So prior to that terrible storm, we had alerted disaster management, and of course disaster management was on standby. We had also issued warnings to communities and to societies over the media. Of course, I think that what none of us understood was the impact of 300 millimeters of rain falling in 24 hours. This would normally be the amount of rainfall that would occur over a couple of months.
So I suppose what would then need, pardon me, Minister, is going forward scenarios similar to perhaps what we see in the United States ahead of a massive natural event where people are given enough advanced warning to perhaps evacuate or move to higher ground.
I suppose that would be the case, but I think that the city of eThekwini and the province of KZN do have climate response strategies. I think that really the issue is that we are going to have to fast track questions around where people are living in settlements. I think that one of the terrible tragedies of this event is that there were people who were living within the 100-year flood zone. And of course, what we understand is with the rapid urbanization in our country, we do have people living in situations across our country, often in informal dwellings, that are not safe in terms of potential for extreme weather events. The bill really, as you said in your introduction, makes it compulsory for all levels of government to integrate their response strategies into their planning. We know as a developing country with existing pressures on our fiscus that the kind of response that is required is something that we're only going to be able to do over a number of years. There have been all kinds of studies done on just how expensive it's going to be to climate-proof our infrastructure. But I suppose essentially what this terrible event is telling us is that there is no time for delay. And as we build back after the floods, we're going to have to make sure that people don't go back to living in areas which we know are not safe.
And just on the issue of policy planning and preparation around climate and making it compulsory for more communication and coordination to happen. At the moment, would you say that the right hand is speaking to the left?
Well, I think that we have been working on a voluntary basis, and we've achieved a lot through cooperative governance and voluntary work. I think that what we've now got to do is to understand that this is, as I said in the beginning, this is not a slow onset event. It is something that is happening now. And all levels of government are going to have to consider how they reprioritize resources so that we can start to deal with the climate resilience questions now and not at some distant stage in the future.
With that in mind, Minister, perhaps you may find it easier to get more, shall we say, cooperation within the public sector. But are you expecting any resistance at all? And if indeed you are, where do you expect that this bill is likely to face the most resistance?
Well, I think that we are not experiencing resistance. What we're experiencing is shortages of budget. But, of course, the bill doesn't only talk to adaptation. It's also going to talk to questions of mitigation, how we reduce our greenhouse gases. And, obviously, part of what's involved there is re-engineering the way in which we produce energy, but also a lot of the production processes in many of our industries. We think that there are 7 or 8 sectors of our economy that will have to change the way in which they produce over the next 15 years so that we can reach our greenhouse gas emissions targets. Obviously, what this requires is financing, and the private sector would be very concerned that they can attract the necessary investment so that they can invest in different forms of greener technology.
Minister Barbara Creecy, Minister for Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. Good to have your time. Thank you.